The most dangerous thing in an astronaut's lunch is not hot sauce. It's bread. Because in microgravity, crumbs don't fall, they float. And a single crumb can drift into a vent, a fan, a switch panel, or even an astronaut's eye. That's why on the International Space Station, sliced bread is basically contraband, and tortillas are the MVP. Now here's the part that messes with your brain. Astronauts don't eat space food because it's futuristic. They eat it because the space station is a sealed machine that has to stay clean, stable, and safe for months. Every bite has engineering rules. So what do astronauts actually eat up there? And why is it way more complicated than just add water? First, astronauts don't pack snacks. Their food system is planned years ahead, tested on Earth, and then launched like mission hardware. NASA and its partners use a mix of food types to keep meals safe without relying on a normal fridge or freezer for everyday eating. There is limited cold stowage on station, and most freezers are prioritized for science, not your lunch. So the everyday menu is built around foods that can sit at room temperature for a long time. Most ISS meals fall into a few real categories. Freeze-dried foods that get rehydrated with water. Thermostabilized foods, heat-processed like shelf-stable pouches you'd take camping. Natural form foods like nuts, cookies, tortillas, and some dried fruit. And beverages that come as powders, then get mixed with station water. That sounds normal, until you watch how it's eaten. There's no plate you can set down. Astronauts use scissors, Velcro, clips, and magnets like they're doing surgery on a snack. Food pouches are opened carefully. Drinks go into special bags with a straw and a clamp, because if you let liquid free, it doesn't spill. It forms a floating sphere that can break into smaller globules and invade equipment. And yes, astronauts do heat food, but not like you do. The ISS uses a food warmer, basically a forced air heating slot. No frying, no open flame, no crunchy crumb explosions. Now let's hit a myth that refuses to die. Astronaut food is bland and depressing. That used to be more true decades ago. Today, crews have a wide menu. NASA has publicly described the U.S. food system as having around a couple hundred items to choose from. Plus, partner agencies bring their own foods. Astronauts can also pack a limited amount of personal preference items, but those still have to meet strict safety rules. Low crumb, shelf-stable, and not something that will spoil, gas out, or leak. But here's the controversy part. Even with all that variety, astronauts often say food tastes duller in space. Why? Your tongue still works, but your body fluids shift upward in microgravity. A lot of astronauts describe it like having a constant mild head cold. More congestion, less punch from aromas, and smell is a huge part of taste. So what do many of them crave? Strong flavors, spicy sauces, tangy stuff, crunchy textures, and that creates a real tension. Space agencies also try to manage sodium. Too much salt can affect fluid balance and health, and spaceflight already changes how your body handles fluids. Historically, some space menus ran high in sodium partly because shelf-stable food tends to rely on it. Modern programs have pushed sodium down, but the "I want more flavor" problem doesn't magically disappear. So astronauts end up loving condiments when they're allowed. Liquids have to be controlled so they don't float away. Everything is about containment. Now, how much do they eat? Not a couple bites because you're weightless. Astronauts typically need roughly the same calories as on Earth, sometimes more depending on body size and workload. Exercise is mandatory on the ISS, often around 2 hours a day using specialized machines to fight muscle and bone loss. That training burns energy, so crews have to eat enough to maintain body mass and performance. If they don't, it's not just, "Oops, I'm hungry." It can mean loss of muscle, reduced endurance, and worse recovery. And nutrition in space is not a vibe. It's a mission-critical system. In microgravity, bones lose density over time. Muscles shrink if they aren't constantly trained. Astronauts monitor intake, and flight surgeons track health markers. Key nutrients matter. Protein, vitamin D, calcium, and overall energy intake are big topics. Iron is also watched because spaceflight changes red blood cell dynamics, and nutrition planning aims to avoid problems like deficiencies or unwanted shifts. So how do you keep people eating well when their taste is muted and the food is mostly shelf-stable? You make it social. Meals are a psychological tool. Astronauts often describe sharing meals as a grounding ritual, one of the few normal human moments in a day full of alarms, timelines, and metal walls. And when a cargo spacecraft arrives, SpaceX Dragon, Northrop Grumman Cygnus, Russia's Progress, fresh food is one of the first things crews hunt for. Fresh fruit and vegetables don't last long up there, so they get eaten fast. People talk about oranges, apples, and fresh treats like their treasure, because they kind of are. And then there's the part that surprises most people. Astronauts can grow some food in orbit. The ISS has hosted plant growth systems like NASA's Veggie and the Advanced Plant Habitat. Crews have grown leafy greens, and NASA has reported successful harvests over the years, including the famous first salad eaten in space from ISS-grown greens in 2015. More recently, the station has also supported experiments with crops like chili peppers and small tomatoes. This isn't about turning the ISS into a farm. It's about learning how plants behave in microgravity and how to support crew nutrition and morale on longer missions. Because the real food fight isn't the ISS. It's deep space. Here's the uncomfortable truth. What works for 6 months in low Earth orbit gets much harder on the Moon and even harder on the way to Mars. You can't rely on frequent resupply. You need longer shelf life, stable vitamins, less packaging waste, and food that people will still want to eat after months of repetition. That's why NASA and partners have been pushing research into new processing methods, packaging, and even entirely new approaches, like the NASA-led Deep Space Food Challenge, which has explored novel ways to produce food with minimal inputs for long-duration missions. The goal is not cool gadgets. The goal is keeping crews healthy and willing to eat enough every day for years. So the next time someone jokes that astronauts live on tubes and pills, remember, space food is a balancing act between biology, engineering, psychology, and safety. One wrong texture can break into crumbs. One unsealed drop can become a floating hazard. One boring menu can slowly reduce how much a crew eats. And one missing nutrient can show up in bone, muscle, immunity, and performance. Spaceflight changes your body. It changes your taste. It changes how you eat. But it doesn't change the fact that food is comfort, culture, and survival, whether you're at a kitchen table or circling Earth every 90 minutes. If you like these science-backed deep dives that separate space myths from space reality, follow for more. Now tell me, if you had to eat one space-safe food every day for 6 months, tortillas, rehydrated meals, or spicy pouch food, what are you choosing?